Okay, this is just a short tutorial and just kind of a quick overview with Siggy for those that just kind of want to see what it does and um, or those of you that are using it, just want a few tips on getting into it or whatnot. So right now I've got just mining here in the background on the C4 currently. Now that I'm logged in with this character on the left here, I am dual boxing. The left character showing in the home, and this one is our C4. I'll go ahead and log in on the other one here real quick, just so you can kind of see the screen. That first screen is actually the one that comes up when you first log into the site or when you first use the link to get into Siggy. Now you usually want to do this through the browser here, the in-game browser. There's more available options and actual connections to the actual game, like actual physically being able to right-click on an actual system and set a destination if you needed to. You can even show info. It'll then come up with an in-game prompt as well. Now, if you do use this site, this Siggy site externally and log in, you will still be able to see most of what you see here as far as the corporation goes and what they have already set up in here and what other people have put in here for links, but you will not be shown in that system as where you are or what ship you're using. So by all means you can do that and you can edit things outside of it, but it is, I mean, the idea behind it is to just kind of get a relative idea as to where people are and what sections they are in. So if you needed help or I needed something scanned down or whatever, you'll know where people are at in different adjacent wormholes that are logged in using it. So real quick, for scanning, real simple. In fact, let me fly back here.
Warp drive active.
Now most of this has already been scanned, but I will show just kind of a quick detailed on a how to, really kind of how you set this thing up. The UI is fairly quick to understand. There's not really too much that isn't too intuitive on it. This bottom section here, if you scroll the way down, it shows kind of the details of actually what people have put in manually and what the system actually has in here that might be for more valuable information. So right now I'm highlighted, so if I click on C4 Home, it's going to give me kind of the description of the actual J code and the solar system. But if I actually just click below it, it'll highlight it. So if you just wanted to highlight something to actually see the description below here as well, you wouldn't want to click the top area because that'll pull up a link. So let's shoot to the C3 here, the C3 that's actually connected to the C4. Now these bookmarks again are all obviously put in here manually. None of this stuff is actually generated, or those two portions of the game are not connected, so they are separate. So you have to come up with some kind of a system or a bookmarking procedure that's going to work, for everybody to have the same kind of things and know what they are when they look at it. Everyone's got their own thing. I kind of have my own. It's only me in this wormhole currently, so something real simple, just showing C3s and stuff, especially with the temporary bookmarks. I prefer not to have them too complex or too time oriented because, well, they'll only last a day anyway. Especially with like gas sites and things like that, I'm going to go through them in just a few minutes, so I don't tend to take too much time to do them, but again, everyone's got their own technique. So for right now, I'm flying into the C3. Right now it's still showing me there in the C4, and again, I am looking at the other character to show this window, but just in terms of screen space, I like to have the other one up while I'm using it. That way it's easier to use. Then I can still monitor this one here. Alright, so it shows me that I'm jumped into the C3, and right now it's going to take a server tick here to update where that location is. On my own, they should be identical, and they are. So this is what you would show if you were in here. If you, let's say you were in the C2, you would have your name with the ship, what kind of ship you're flying, and as well what location you're at and what wormhole. So the first thing I usually do in the system, definitely just kind of a good reminder, is just to make sure you always label the entrance to the next wormhole. So when you're warping around, let's say you don't want to sit next to that thing for whatever reason, you will always have that on your bookmarks to fly back to, and you're not going to have a spreadsheet full of signatures to have to find your way back home. So right now, The C3 I've already updated earlier, so it does have all the points in it. So what I think I'm going to do just for the example here is actually just go into the C6.
Warp drive active.
Hopefully it's not too busy in there. But I'm in a Cobra's Op ship, so I really don't care too much. So I believe this is the C6 here. So hopefully this one doesn't have too many signatures to grab. Oh, it's got a few. Okay. So for right now, let me go ahead and maybe scan a bulk of them here real quick. Now my scanning skills aren't the greatest. I think I'm at 90 to 100 or so for probe scanning strength, but it is good enough to scan most things. A few nullsec sites do give me some trouble, but that's neither here nor there. So right away we've got a gas site. So let's just scan the C6 gas site down. It's kind of the quickest one to come up. So right now in the system here, if I click on it, highlight it, remember it's at the bottom. Click it below it so it doesn't link me to the stupid system again. Scroll down, it will ask you on what you'd like to update with this interface right here. There's two ways to do it. Actually, you can see that it has a static to C5 here as well. Once it's highlighted, it'll give you these little nitbit statistics. Now, some corps, especially some of the C6, C5 corps, a lot of them like to keep record of actually, certain pauses, certain descanned areas, especially if they're looking to actually take it out or take it over. For this region here, we really don't have to go too in depth with it. Again, this is just kind of the basics and just kind of a healthy walkthrough. Trying to be as quick as I can with this. So right now I've got a gas site that looks like it's got the signature, the name of the actual type of gas site, and the location. So basically what I usually do on this is I will save it in here just as a heads up. I'll put it in my own little schematic here of the temporary folder. I'll save that as what type of gas site it is. That'll be good. It's not so much prevalent if you're just using smaller website or smaller C sites, so C2, C3s gas sites. They're not a big deal to know really what type they are, because most, if not everything, can be handled with a cruiser or less with the rats in them. When you get to the C6 and the C5s, they do matter because the rats get to be pretty proportionally pretty nasty to deal with. So it's good to know what you're going to be against when they spawn. So that would depend on the actual name of the site. So what I usually do at this point is I actually will copy and paste, just literally Control C once that thing's highlighted, and this will actually automatically put. Should automatically put the info. There it is. The info in what is the mass sig reader. Now you can do this with every single one of them. I'm going to go ahead and submit. And that is kind of the easy way to do it, to be honest. It's kind of the quick way once you get it scanned down. Now, what I like to do, because I am the only person in this C4, for instance, I will scan down everything in here at once, and I will take kind of the bulk of it, Control A, Control C, just grab everything I can in here, and literally just put it into this template or this open source notepad format here, and just throw them in there and then hit submit, and that will literally populate all the locations. The only thing that it will not do is, now this one's an easy one, it's going to give you the gas site and things like that. Now the only ones that are not going to do that on their own are are going to be the wormhole signatures, because you're not going to know where it goes from the signature itself, right? Just from looking at the signature, you will know where it goes typically by the actual ID or code or signature code on it. When you actually approach the wormhole and highlight it, it'll have a particular code to use. So I'm actually going to show us that real quick. See how bad this place is. Okay, so fairly light. I don't see anybody doing any sites in here. So we're going to just scan down this one that I had impartially scanned down. Got lucky there with just having the wormhole. Alright, that was easy. Actually got pretty lucky on that one. So now what we're going to do is, and again, this is if you just want to do these individually, you can. There's no real 100% method to do it, right? That's how not to do it. Okay. So we submit the wormhole information in, and you can put these in manually. It's honestly, it just takes longer. It's realistically putting exactly the same information you're going to put in. You can always edit this information later there with that pencil mark next to the signature, putting comments below it. C4 home, C5 home entrance, whatever you want to put in there to kind of puts little nitbits of information. Active wormhole, whatever. Really doesn't matter. That's up to you. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to warp to this wormhole. Alright, so this particular wormhole here is going to show that it's a C248 wormhole. That is the one thing that won't be automatically generated. So a C248 wormhole is actually going to throw us out to nullsec. Now it's just a good thing to have. I didn't even have to enter that wormhole in order to know that, but it is just kind of good to show that amount in there. Now at the very top here, you'll show that it doesn't actually label any extensions until I would actually go physically through that wormhole. Now I would have to be logged into this system in-game on the browser in order for that to, if I jump through that wormhole, for that to actually pull up a link and actually go through. Now I can actually set up links in here manually as well if needed. So for right now, the corp isn't currently using Siggy too often, so we don't have a whole lot of real-time information here for the C2. But for right now, let's go ahead and take a look at. Actually, Potato was good enough to actually do this, where he just put that in there. It's a ton easier to find where this was, especially if I'm not in there too often. So that's actually good for me to find that. But so all right, so this is actually the home system where the entrance to this C2 is. We can actually put in a manual link by just clicking on that, and we want to add a link. Now we're going to go from, and this is where it gets a little more specific than just kind of putting in whatever you want. It's going to actually ask you for the specific system that it's going to be in here. We want to be to Argeland, and it's actually going to correct you, so you know you're doing it right. It's actually going to find that in the list, an actual saved database of the system to know where it's at. So it'll help you kind of autocorrect if you're goofy at some goofy name with the spelling. There's a ton of those. But we are going to have to know the J code of the actual wormhole, and Armistice was actually good enough to put that in there. So it's just kind of a quick link to know. So that is the wormhole. Now there are different types of wormholes. Links, which, there's a frigate only type of wormhole or link, or bind between the wormholes. There's frigate only, and there's EOL. So basically, in the stage as well is good to know, because that will actually determine how long that actual connection is built to last. If you get to it and it's wobbling crazy or whatever, you probably want to right click on it, hit show info, just like this here in the corner. Show info. And this thing will even tell you that it's going to nullsec. You really don't have to know much about it other than that. But this portion here is really the most important thing you're really going to get out of that show info, is to determine how long it's going to last, both by time, and the other thing that can do it is going to be what's really passed through it. C5 wormholes and up can handle capital ships throughout their wormholes. They have a much larger mass. That means that if you're in the C5 exiting the wormhole, that's how much mass it's going to handle. It does not apply for the same, so you can't take a capital and put it into a C5 because it's a C5. So the time and the actual size of the wormhole are going to matter, and there's actually a good spreadsheet online to show you what the difference is between them on how much mass they can handle. I think the standard for C4s is somewhere around 2 billion for size. So we're going to go ahead and save this one because it doesn't look to appear to have any significant issues. We're going to go ahead and save it as a stage 1. Now it went ahead and saved it. Now you can edit this, and this is actually universal, so if you were to pull this up, this is how this should look identically to this. You know, the setup, where things are and how they're linked. So if I hit edit, I can actually move these things around to give a little better interface. You know, it's some things like that happen where it'll be layered on top of one another, and then you get like this big chain. You know, kind of how this is happening over here with this C6, where I had to run a bit to try to find an exit, where it shows kind of a lot of things going on over here. A C1 to high sec, and that high sec is garbage. But, you know, it shows like a lot of things here that are going on. So it's nice to have to move them around, and you won't be able to do anything else with this editor until you actually save changes to that actual edit, or changing where locations are. So you want to save changes and then go about doing your thing. So for right now, I mean, that is pretty much the basics. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here that you can get into. If you hit the extra tab, it actually gives you some descriptions on the sites. These link straight to EvE Survival if you need it, so it's got a kind of a handy thing in there. And just as a pretty good principle, rule of thumb, you just always want to have this open, you know, while you're playing. That way, at least, you know, other people can help you if you're out there, and as well, they can get to you if you need help, or, you know, you're stuck in a wormhole, you don't have a bookmark. All these little scenarios. Hey, I see a ship on D-scan. Is that somebody else? You know, you're going to see whoever's in your corp and what they're flying in what wormhole, if, you know, everyone's proactively using it the way they should. But again, it is an optional tool. It is a very powerful tool. It's good to use, especially with wormhole navigation. It's realistically all you got besides using just bookmarks, the bookmark system. I mean, realistically speaking, that's all you realistically have to work with in the wormhole in order to use navigation and communication besides TeamSpeak, so, or just your VoIP comms. But yeah, I just wanted to give a quick introduction to this, and kind of give people maybe a heads up and visual as to what they're really looking at and what it's about, and hopefully you guys get a chance to try it out soon. Let me know if you have any other questions. I myself or Iron are fairly versed in it, and can probably get you where you need to be. So again, appreciate you taking the time to watch. You guys have a good one.